Somewhere in America right now, a rider is filling his tank with a fuel that federal rules say does not belong in a motorcycle. He is not doing it on purpose. The pump looks completely normal, sitting there between the regular and the premium, and the fuel is a little cheaper. The warning is easy to miss. A small label, a pump selector that looks almost exactly like every other choice on the machine he has used 100 times. So why does the American Motorcyclist Association say that not one of the estimated 22 million motorcycles and ATVs in use in the United States is certified by the EPA to burn it? But this story does not start at that pump. It starts inside a steel pipeline buried under the Gulf Coast, and it ends with a corroded brass jet sitting on somebody's workbench in a cold garage in Ohio. Let me ruin a forum argument for you. The gasoline in the branded tanker truck and the gasoline in the discount station's tanker truck very often came out of the same terminal tank, in the same town, on the same morning. American fuel moves through what the industry calls a fungible pipeline system. Refineries along the Texas and Louisiana coast pump gasoline into massive underground lines like the Colonial Pipeline, which runs the length of the East Coast. Different companies' product gets commingled in that pipe. It arrives at a distribution terminal and it sits in shared storage tanks. Then the tanker trucks pull up to the loading rack, and in many markets this is the moment when otherwise similar base gasoline actually becomes a specific retail brand. A metering system injects a proprietary additive package into the truck as it fills. Detergents, corrosion inhibitors, demulsifiers, which are surfactants that help the fuel shed water and drop it out, instead of holding it in suspension. That injection is typically less than 1% of the total volume. So the guy at the bar telling you the cheap station sells inferior refinery gasoline is usually wrong about the refinery. The bigger risk was never the logo on the sign. It is the condition and the turnover of that one specific station's tanks, and we are absolutely going to get to that. Which raises the obvious question. If the base fuel is the same, does the additive package actually matter? Turns out it matters more than anyone expected, and we know that because of a regulation that backfired spectacularly. In the mid-1990s, the Environmental Protection Agency set a minimum detergent requirement for all gasoline sold in America. The problem with a legal minimum is that some companies treat it as a target instead of a floor. Several marketers looked at the new number, realized they had been exceeding it, and lowered their detergent right down to it. Meeting the minimum was cheaper than beating it. Automakers noticed, because they were the ones tearing down engines and finding gummed-up fuel injectors and carbon-crusted intake valves on vehicles that were barely broken in. So in 2004, BMW, General Motors, Honda, and Toyota did something car companies almost never do. They wrote their own fuel standard. They called it Top Tier. To license that name, a gasoline has to carry roughly 2 to 3 times the minimum detergent the Environmental Protection Agency requires. And it has to leave out metallic additives like MMT, mainly because that stuff damages catalytic converters and oxygen sensors, and it can foul spark plugs on the way. For about a decade, the standard sat there as an automaker claim. Then in 2016, AAA decided to actually test it. They pulled 6 different fuels from a single Texas market, 3 licensed top tier and 3 not, handed them to an independent certified laboratory, and ran a standardized engine test, simulating 4,000 miles of driving. The top tier engines came out averaging 34 milligrams of carbon deposits per intake valve. The non-top tier engines came out at 660. That is 19 times the buildup on the backside of the intake valves, where deposits choke the airflow and mess up the fuel mixture. And AAA found the average price difference between the two categories was about 3 cents a gallon. Now here is the part that every other video about this study leaves out, and I would rather you hear it from me than from an angry mechanic in the comments. That study tested 6 fuels. 6. And that 19 times figure is specifically about intake valve deposits. When you dig into the full report, the results were mixed everywhere else. Top tier was about even on the piston tops, and in that particular test, it actually scored a little worse on the cylinder head. So the effect is real. The internet's version of the effect, where top tier makes your entire engine 19 times cleaner, is a fantasy. And no, I am not making that up. Today, more than 100 brands license the standard. Chevron, Shell, Exxon, Mobil, Costco, QuickTrip, Marathon, Sunoco, Valero, and a long list of others. And several enormous chains you have absolutely bought fuel from are not licensed. At the time of writing, that list has included names like Sam's Club, Sheetz, Wawa, and Casey's. Pay attention to this next distinction, because it is the one that separates you from everyone getting scared by a thumbnail. Not being licensed as top tier does not mean a station's fuel is bad, illegal, watered down, or out of federal spec. It means the company chose not to pay to certify against a voluntary automaker standard. The list also moves. BP and Amoco left the program years ago, and they are back on it now. So do not trust any video forever on this, including this one. Go check the current list yourself. That is the detergent story. Now let me tell you about the greatest marketing campaign in the history of the fuel business. The word premium. Octane is not a measure of quality, and it is not really a measure of energy either. A gallon of 93 does not automatically give your engine more power than a gallon of 87. Octane measures one single property, which is how stubbornly the fuel resists igniting on its own before the spark plug tells it to. Energy content does shift a little with formulation and ethanol blend, but that tracks what is in the fuel, not the octane number printed on the pump. Higher octane is simply fuel that is harder to detonate. In 2016, AAA strapped engines to a dynamometer and ran them on regular and premium. In vehicles designed to run on regular, they found no meaningful gain in horsepower, no meaningful gain in fuel economy, and no meaningful gain in emissions. Their estimate for what American drivers had spent on premium fuel their engines could not use in a single year was more than $2.1 billion. 16.5 million drivers, doing it over 270 million separate times. AAA's automotive engineering director summarized it about as bluntly as an engineer is capable of. Premium gasoline, he said, is higher octane, not higher quality. And this is not some fresh discovery. In September of 1996, the Federal Trade Commission charged Exxon over deceptive advertising claiming its high-octane fuel kept engines cleaner. Exxon was not even the first one caught. The FTC noted at the time that Amoco, Sun, and Unocal had already settled charges over superiority claims made for their high-octane gasoline. The FTC official leading it said consumers might be paying as much as 20 cents a gallon more because of claims that premium would clean their engines. Look at the mismatch there. The advertised benefit was cleaning. The product being sold was knock resistance, and the detergent that does the actual cleaning lives in the additive package, which at a licensed top-tier station goes into every grade at the pump, regular included. So buying premium for an engine that only asks for regular is a scam, and you should all run 87, right? Absolutely not. And if you ride a sport bike, please do not do that. Motorcycles break this rule, and they break it in a way that can cost you an engine. A modern leader-class sport bike can run a compression ratio north of 12.5 to 1, with some pushing past 13. Those engines are engineered to live right on the edge of detonation, and the manufacturer selected an octane number specifically to keep them on the safe side of that edge. When your owner's manual says 91, that number did not come from the marketing department. That is the engine builder telling you exactly where the cliff is. And many motorcycles, especially older or simpler ones, do not have the knock sensor that a modern car uses to detect knock, also called detonation, and automatically pull ignition timing to save itself. Some newer high-performance bikes have started adding that safety net, but plenty of machines still have nothing. So a bike can suffer light knock under load for thousands of miles, quietly hammering the piston crown, the rings, and the bearings, while all you hear is a happy exhaust note. Open the manual. Buy the octane it asks for. Not the grade above it to feel good about yourself, and definitely not the grade below it to save $4. If your motorcycle is sitting in a garage right now with fuel in the tank, the next section is the one that is going to cost you real money if you click away. Hit subscribe, because I take apart the stuff that actually kills bikes every single week. While every rider in America has been arguing about brands and octane numbers, the thing genuinely eating motorcycle fuel systems has been sitting in most of the gasoline sold in this country, up to 10% of it. Printed on a sticker that nobody has ever read: ethanol. Ethanol is hygroscopic, which is a technical way of saying it pulls water straight out of the air. And here is where motorcycles get singled out. Older motorcycle tanks are often just vented to the atmosphere, and even modern bikes can sit for long stretches parked with a little fuel and a lot of empty airspace. That makes storage conditions matter far more than they do for a car that gets driven every single day. Temperature swings move humid air in and out of that tank, especially when it is only part full, and the ethanol in your fuel goes shopping for moisture. Once that fuel absorbs more water than it can carry, the mixture does something called phase separation. And that threshold depends heavily on temperature. Around 60 degrees, an E10 blend tolerates roughly 0.5% water by volume. Down near freezing, that tolerance can fall toward 0.3%. Cross it, and the ethanol and the water divorce the gasoline and sink. Now there is a water and alcohol-rich layer sitting at the very bottom of your tank, which is precisely where your petcock, your fuel pickup, and your float bowls are drinking from. That layer does not combust properly. It does corrode aluminum, zinc, and the brass in your jets, and the gasoline floating above it has now lost octane because some of the ethanol that was holding that octane number up just walked out of the room. Ethanol is also a solvent. On an older bike or one wearing non-ethanol rated replacement parts, it goes to work on certain rubber fuel lines, on gaskets, on the O-rings inside your petcock, and on the resin in some fiberglass tanks. It strips old varnish off the inside of the tank and delivers all of it, very helpfully, straight into your jets. This is why older, carbureted, and seasonal bikes can suffer in ways a daily driven modern car usually does not. The car has a sealed evaporative system. It gets driven constantly so the fuel never sits, and its computer quietly corrects the mixture when the ethanol leans it out. A carbureted bike that sits for 6 weeks has fixed brass jets with no ability to correct anything. Ethanol-blended fuel can start causing storage trouble within a few months, especially in humid conditions. Ethanol-free fuel generally stores longer, especially with a stabilizer, and a neglected carburetor is basically a machine for turning stale fuel into a $900 problem. Which brings us all the way back to that pump from the beginning. E15 is 15% ethanol. It received a partial waiver from the EPA around 2010 and 2011, and that waiver covers flex fuel vehicles and conventional cars, and light trucks from model year 2001 onward. That is the whole approved list. Everything else, motorcycles, boats, small engines, and anything from the year 2000 or older, is left out. Under the EPA's misfueling rule, putting anything above 10% ethanol into a motorcycle is prohibited. Same goes for ATVs, boats, lawn equipment, and older cars. The American Motorcyclist Association has been direct about why. Not one of the estimated 22 million motorcycles and ATVs in use in the United States is certified by the EPA to run on more than E10. The agency's own stated concerns are that E15 in a motorcycle can lean out the air-fuel ratio, drive exhaust gas temperatures up, and cause outright component failure in parts that were never designed for it. And some blender pumps dispense multiple ethanol blends from the same hardware, which creates a labeling problem and, on a tiny motorcycle tank, a leftover fuel problem too, which means the entire system protecting your engine is a small sticker and whether you happen to be paying attention. So how did corn end up in your gas tank in the first place? Blame a chemical called MTBE. As lead disappeared from gasoline and clean air rules pushed for oxygenated fuel, refiners reached for MTBE because it boosted octane and helped meet the reformulated gasoline requirements. It performed beautifully inside the engine and catastrophically everywhere else because MTBE is extraordinarily soluble in water. It seeped out of leaking underground storage tanks across the country and went straight into groundwater, and it makes drinking water taste foul at concentrations measured in parts per billion. In the mid-90s, it turned up in the municipal wells of Santa Monica, California, and the city lost roughly half of its daily water supply. Years later, a multi-state settlement over MTBE contamination came in around $423 million. Then in 2005, Congress passed the Energy Policy Act, and this is the part that actually mattered. The act removed the federal oxygenate requirement for reformulated gasoline. And MTBE makers had been lobbying hard for a liability shield, something to protect them from that mountain of contamination lawsuits. Congress refused to give it to them. So refiners looked at the lawsuits, looked at the missing shield, looked at ethanol, and switched fast. A groundwater scandal, oxygenate rules, liability fears, farm politics, and federal renewable fuel policy all worked together to push ethanol into ordinary gasoline. Nobody in that chain was thinking about your 1998 carburetor. Now, at this point, you are probably thinking about the wall of colorful bottles by the register. Let me save you some money. Octane boosters. A bottle promises to add 10 points. But in octane language, 1 point usually means 1/10 of an octane number. So 10 points is one full number. Your 87 becomes 88, not 97. And when an independent lab actually tested a popular booster that advertised several points, it moved the real octane by barely half a point in a full tank. To turn regular into genuine premium, you would have to empty half the shelf into your gas, at which point you have spent more than the premium would have cost in the first place. Fuel stabilizers are a different story, but not the one you have been told. A good stabilizer genuinely slows oxidation and extends shelf life, often out past a year in decent conditions. What most of them cannot do, despite what half the internet believes, is reverse phase separation. Once your fuel has taken on enough water and split, no bottle on that shelf puts it back together. At that point, the only real fix is draining the fuel and starting over. Read the fine print on any label that hints otherwise, and watch how carefully the wording dances around that exact claim. The one that actually earns its price is PEA, polyethyramine. According to Chemical and Engineering News, Chevron patented that cleaning approach back in 1980, and it is the detergent chemistry behind Techron. PEA is thermally stable, which means it survives combustion chamber temperatures long enough to actually scrub carbon off hot surfaces instead of vaporizing on contact. If a cleaner clearly says it uses PEA chemistry, it is at least playing in the category that does real work. If it is mostly solvents and mineral oil, you have purchased an expensive way to make your garage smell interesting. Which leaves us with the last enemy, and it is the one nobody thinks about, the station itself. In Toledo, Ohio, customers of one gas station started breaking down shortly after filling up. Inspectors pulled a sample from the underground storage tank and found 2.8 inches of standing water sitting in it. One customer took the owner to small claims court and won a judgment of $3,342 plus interest and costs after a repair bill of roughly $3,200. Another reported around $1,500 in damage. In early 2025, a Circle K location in Charleston, South Carolina was sued after water-contaminated fuel bought right around the new year allegedly destroyed a customer's diesel truck. The state agriculture department confirmed water contamination at that site. Note what that actually was. One franchise location with a bad tank, not a bad brand. Water gets into underground tanks through failed seals, through rain, through simple condensation. Now, you have probably heard the old rule that you should never fill up while a tanker is refilling the station because it stirs up sediment like a snow globe. Is that overblown at a modern station? Honestly, probably. Fuel gets filtered several times over before it reaches you, and today's tanks are monitored. Fuel analysts now call the snow globe idea mostly a myth. But on a motorcycle, with a small tank and tiny carburetor jets, waiting a few minutes costs you absolutely nothing. So if a tanker is unloading when you pull in, maybe just grab a coffee first. Before I give you the plan, I owe you an honest counterpoint, because I would rather you trust me than agree with me. If you ride a modern fuel-injected motorcycle, and you ride it most weeks, and you buy fuel from a busy station, E10 is fine. Your bike's computer corrects the mixture. Your fuel lines and seals were manufactured to tolerate ethanol. Your fuel never sits long enough to absorb meaningful water. The ethanol industry argues the panic is overblown, and for that specific rider, they are basically right. The danger is not evenly distributed. It concentrates viciously in old carbureted bikes, in seasonal riders, and in any machine that sits. So here is what actually keeps a motorcycle engine alive, and it costs you almost nothing. Buy the octane your owner's manual specifies. Not higher, not lower. Buy it from a licensed top-tier station if you have one, because that additive package is real and it costs pennies. Buy it from a busy station because volume means fresh fuel. Never put E15 in a motorcycle because your engine is not certified for it, and neither is your warranty. If an older or carbureted bike is going to sit longer than about a month, get ahead of it. Run ethanol-free fuel with a stabilizer, then ride or run the engine long enough for that treated fuel to actually reach the carburetor bowls or the injectors, not just the tank. For longer storage on a carbureted bike, shut off the petcock and drain the float bowls, because the smallest passages are where stale fuel does the most damage. And if that tanker is unloading, you already know. Go somewhere else. Go back to that rider at the pump from the start of this video, standing there with the nozzle in his hand, saving 30 cents. He is not being punished by a brand, or a conspiracy, or a bad refinery. He is being punished by the wrong fuel for the machine. Too much ethanol for a motorcycle, too old for a carburetor, or contaminated by a station tank nobody caught in time. The brand on the sign was never the whole story. The fuel in the tank was. If this changed how you look at the pump, subscribe. Next week, I am breaking down what actually happens inside your carburetor during a winter of storage, in the order the parts fail.